Hello, I'm Terry David Mulligan. Let me tell you about the video you're about to hopefully watch and enjoy on the YouTube channel, Terry David Mulligan YouTube channel. By the way, I didn't pick the title. Someone else said, no, you got to use your name. What, I mean, all three words? Yeah, okay. This is Christopher Waters. Chris Waters is the preeminent wine writer in Canada. His platform is the wine column in the Globe and Mail. He has our attention. And when a request comes from Christopher Waters saying, Chris would like to do a Zoom interview with you to do a feature story on Q&A wines, you pay attention. Q&A Wines is a project and a passion project for myself and Jason Priestley and winemaker Michal Mosny from Winemaker's Cut. The story is he saw us do Hollywood and Vines. He was in Slovakia. It caused he and his wife Martina to leave Slovakia, come to the Okanagan, and become winemakers here. And and we celebrated it by releasing a wine called Q&A. The red is a Bordeaux blend. The white is just coming out now, and it's Marsanne Roussanne Viognier. It's a Rhone blend. And Christopher Waters was going to review both. So that's the interview that you see. I've sort of hijacked his Zoom call, but I asked for permission. I said, this is really good. I love what I'm hearing. And I said, no, it's not just about Q&A, friends. It's about wine and his views on wine and how he's a very passionate guy. And so it's wine geeks geeking out. Okay. So that's what's about to happen. By the way, in the end, when he wrote his column in the Easter weekend, he gave the Bordeaux blend, the red, 91 points, and he gave the white, just to be released, Marsanne Roussanne Viognier, a 92. Thank you to Christopher Waters. Thank you to Olivia Siu for putting us all together and organizing this. So enjoy this. Thank you to Corey Wood for the edit and the cleaning it up and everything that he does. All right, enjoy. Thank you.
In interest of, I guess, the backstory, maybe I was going to say beginning at the beginning, but I don't know what the beginning is. Terry, were you born in a log cabin? Like, I don't want what beginning we want here.
Not quite. Although, no, North Vancouver's there wasn't a log cabin. But I will tell you the story of Michal, and I'll take it to when I finally meet him, and then he'll take us back. Okay, it goes like this. I'm over in Vancouver Island, and any wine event that I can attend that has a story to it, attached to it, I'm going to go. And I think it was BC Wines, just asking their respective wineries to come and pour in Vancouver and Victoria. And I'm walking around. It's very busy, 2 levels. But right in the middle of the room is Winemaker's Cut. And I walked up to Michal and said, I'm Terry Mulligan, Tasting Room Radio. He says, I'm Michal Mosny. I said, you just appeared out of nowhere. This label just showed up. And it was not here and there, everywhere. How did you do that? And congratulations, it's fantastic wine. Wonderfully done. And he told me, and then he said, and you don't know why I'm here today pouring. I said, no, I don't. And then he told me this story. Michal?
Yeah, well, the story is quite interesting. But, immediately when I saw you, Terry, I was like, that was one of my biggest dreams to come true, because when I was in Slovakia running my small boutique winery and simultaneously also working for the largest sparkling winery in Slovakia, every day when I was working in my vineyard in the summer, we used to rush back to our home from the vineyard and watch our very favorite show, Hollywood and Vines TV, hosted by Terry and Jason. And that was kind of our only connection to the world of wine, and especially we liked the show because it was so easy, so fun, without pretensions, So we really enjoyed it, and that's actually how we got to know Okanagan, because in one episode you were showcasing Okanagan. I remember clearly that Jason was doing jet skiing. And like, quite honestly, the first thing that got me interested was the jet skiing in Okanagan. Like, but then, of course, you were tasting some wines from the area, and actually, you were also tasting wines from a winery that was making wine from grapes that I'm farming right now. I probably shouldn't be mentioning their name right now. And we researched Okanagan, we researched Canadian wine industry a little bit, and then in 2012 we decided that we are going to give it a chance. We are going to go to Okanagan, and so we landed here in Okanagan. We got to know the vineyards, the area. We completely fell in love with the area, and we sold everything back home in Slovakia, and we permanently moved to Okanagan. In 2015, like my first contact with Okanagan was just to maintain the vineyards. I opened my small vineyard management company because there was a lot of people that just wanted to have a vineyard as a backyard, 4 acres backyard, kind of different kind of setting. But so we were maintaining a couple of vineyards here and there, and then somehow one client didn't have exactly enough money to pay us, so he gave us some wine that we made for him. And that's how we started. We put a label on it, and ever since then, I'm just going with the flow. And until 2018, I believe, 3 years after we started the winery, or 19, I think, that's when I met Terry, and I told him the story, and that's how Q&A basically started.
And I'll follow that up because there's two sides to every story. We kept on talking to one another. I wanted to see how he was going to grow and what he was going to do. And I told Jason, this guy is here because of, he said, we should do a wine. So then eventually, I didn't say that to you, but you said, maybe a year later, you said, we should do a wine together just to celebrate. Well, what have you got? Well, I happen to have a Bordeaux blend in barrels. I dropped the phone, I ran around and did my happy dance. I went back, I phoned Jason, and he went, yeah! And it just set in motion. There's a lot of work involved. And the interesting thing, Chris, is that you may know this from, I'm sure you do, and from your store, as a matter of fact. When your name's on it, on the back of the label, even if it's small, it's not the first thing you see, it's a different story. It's a different ride. It's a totally different experience. Your name's on it. And people can find you. They can call, it's like opening night. It's a really different feeling to be talking about a wine that you actually had a small hand in it. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal for me.
Well, it's, and also the other thing I would like to mention that usually behind every brand, behind every wine label, it's kind of you need to have like a financial plan and, kind of a business plan. But behind this label, like the first thing was really to make a genuine wine to celebrate the fact that me and my wife landed in Canada because of Terry and Jason's show. And then slowly we started to discuss the other details, and everything is just going with the flow. Even the vineyard, basically. In 2020, I walked a vineyard called Clouds Wayside Vineyard, which is located on Ferry Road in Oliver, on the western side, high up elevation, still Golden Mile Bench. And I walked the vineyard, and I immediately knew that I like with these grapes and the whole area, the whole like microclimate in that vineyard. That's going to be absolutely amazing. I'm going to sign up this vineyard. I signed up a long-term lease for this vineyard, even though I didn't have any plan to use those grapes in my portfolio. But I knew that I want to make wine from these grapes. And then after the wine was already in a barrel, we talked with Terry, and I said, like, well, Terry, like we should put this message, our story, our experience, how we got together in a bottle, and that's how it all started.
Nice. And then, so you come to them with not a fully realized project because you've got barrels, and that's just you've left the station, but the destination, where you're landing, is up to be determined. So how involved does the Q, the ampersand, and the A representing each of you get involved in this? How involved are you willing co-pilots, Terry, or are you kind of hands?
No. It was fantastic. It was a wonderful experience. I was just thrilled. Two bottles showed up. We talked about the blend, and Jason, from his time at Black Hills and Nota Bene,
Yeah.
he wasn't along for the ride. He walked in first of all. The thing about Jason is he's got, depending on what time when you see him, anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 bottles of wine. He delivered wines none of us will be able to drink by the time we leave this planet. And he studies it. He knows that and he's the guy that turned me on to wine while we were fishing. Just all he talked about was wine, not fishing, wine, not sports, wine. And he taught and he listened and learned while he was at Black Hills and watched the making of Nota Bene. He knew where he wanted to take that Bordeaux blend, and you have to honor the man who made it and grew it, and you have to honor this partnership. And we found a blend that came along and went, that's it right there. And it was a godsend because we could have been fighting over 3 or 4 different blends. It was bottle number 2, which I still have. I kept for historical purposes in the back, just with a label, just a little typewritten thing on it. Number 2. And we went, this is it. Okay, let's go. That was the moving forward part. So you it's gut instinct. We looked at we thought maybe a Cab Franc would play a little bigger role in it, but those were just personal issues. The wine spoke for itself. It just said, this is, how do you like me now? And it turned out well. Turned out really well.
Nice. And then as far as that's 2018 as you're talking about. You've got other iterations of this to come.
So it was around the time of pandemic when the whole world shut down. That's when we started to talk about how are we going to shape the blend, how are we going to do the label and everything, and then released last year in November. After about 1 year in a bottle.
We lost you, Terry.
Terry, we cannot hear you.
It needs time and bottle.
Yeah.
And when it's ready, that's when we'll release it. So it wasn't going to be the proper calendar month, but that's okay. And surprisingly because I held myself in check, the ratings, the reviews were fantastic. It was just amazing. I just sat there and stared at my hands for about 5 minutes. It was unbelievable because I was ready for some hard shots across the bow, but it turned out to be they tasted and smelled and experienced what we did. It was really, really amazing. And again, your name's on the bottle.
Yeah.
I thought it was the democracy of actually the 3 of us agreeing on what the blend was it took about 10-15 minutes tops, a little back and forth, boom, there we are.
This might take things in a different direction, but I've got to see this as a couple of things. I mean, obviously, first and foremost, super exciting, right? Anytime you have this kind of creative collaboration, really exciting. But this reaction that you're talking about, Terry, is exactly, I took it, I'm here. I'm sitting at my kitchen table at Hamilton, where I've been since COVID shut down. I've been monitoring the world of wine from this spot or there, or one of the 4 chairs, depending how much I want to look out the window. But it was nice, and maybe because I'm buffered and I'm not in the belly of the beast, but it was nice to have Okanagan, the ankle biters, not kind of sit this one out. Or maybe they're sitting it all out because they realize it's like, the high tide raises all ships, and we need to stop pulling other ventures, ambitious projects, creative partnerships. Anybody who's looking to green the landscape, make good wine, authentic wine, honest wine, bring it to market, pour it into somebody's glass and celebrate the surroundings and clink glasses and toast to our good health. 2 glasses a week, mind you. But I just thought, huzzah. 10 years ago, it would have been a whole lot of, oh, can you believe that? where did they get off doing this? Or, just what we need, another Potemkin village of a wine kind of thing. But maybe they understand because you're there, Terry, and they understand that you're self-effacing and you've been the one putting your shoulder in with to try and tell these stories and amplify these stories. Jason's proven himself with investment in Black Hills when nobody knew the Okanagan wines. To have star power like that kind of come and say, look, I could take this money and plunk it in Napa just as easily as I could put it here on the Black Sage bench, but I'm choosing here because it's more compelling than what I've seen elsewhere. So I just think it's like maybe we've come of age, and maybe there's a bit more kumbaya and linking arms in the Okanagan than there has been to celebrate a wine culture, as opposed to tear everyone down in the feast of it's a small pie, but I just want my share of it.
Exactly. And it's perceptive to focus in on that, and it's rightly so. We've both seen it. We've both seen some nasty exchanges. I've had people in a studio, one of whom was shaking visibly because he didn't want to be in the same room as the other winemaker. And so I've seen it up close. I'm glad that I invited the two of them together. As it turns out, that's very perceptive. It's very true. And I love the fact that there's support. I really do. And and certain friends of mine who I really respect, they'll take me aside and say, yes, no, it's okay, or whatever. And they've been very, very kind and spoke not just of a, yeah, we like it, no, we don't like it, of a, this is really good. What can you do the next year? How can you extend this run? How can you not be just a one bottle? And the interesting thing is I'm judging the Lieutenant Governor Awards next week in Penticton. I'm going to be surrounded by all those people that you want judgment from and dialogue with. And by the time the week's done, I think I'll have an answer as to how they like the wine.
And I would like to add one thing, Chris. Like you mentioned, Terry and Jason could have picked French winemaker, Australian winemaker. They picked a winemaker from Eastern Europe, which means absolutely like a lot to me. Like that's something incredible.
But it's like, well, I mean, there's that notion what the NBA players always talk about: game recognizes game, right? And I think that there's a bit of that, right? Like you kind of relate first and foremost, hopefully on a human level, on a human scale, and have that interaction, and then you can have maybe the hard dialogue over shaping this white wine, which I'm guessing, since that didn't come fully realized, that's where the Q&A kind of takes, to me, a bit of a quantum leap, but because you kind of came together and made this kind of magical elixir of a red blend, coming up with something of a white wine where you don't necessarily have a playbook. That's where it becomes really interesting, and I think that's where becomes the May release becomes that really telling in what the trajectory of Q&A can be.
Wow, fantastic! I love that. By the way, we were in conversation, the three of us, about a lot of things, and very casually, at the end of a dialogue for 20, 25 minutes, she said, "Oh, by the way, I have a white wine for you." What? Yeah, it's a white wine. What is it? I'll tell you later. I got to go. And it took 3 weeks to find out that this wine was a Marsanne Roussanne Viognier. But I would thank you. Didn't ask my opinion. Just there it is. Oh my God, I love that one. See,
well,
I love that. Go.
I was watching your show, so I think I knew your palate. I knew that you would like it. I knew immediately.
Okay. I have a thing about winter whites as well, Chris. I love the idea of winter whites. I love the idea of white wine with texture. that is not can't be even described as a patio sipper. It engages you. It engages your food. It just makes the moment so much better. And so I'm kind of fascinated. Two things. I'm fascinated by winter whites and field blends.
Yeah.
And field blends I love, but I also am fascinated by the fact that any number of wineries that have field blends don't put it on the label. It's just a blend, as opposed to saying this is a field blend that comes from this plot of land right here, those vines right there. We blend it all together. I keep asking, well, why don't you call it a field blend? Oh, because it scares people away. People they don't know what it is. Anyway, those are my two things I chase after now.
Yeah, that notion of blend, I remember a million years ago, and a gentleman that I don't think either of you ever would have ever encountered, but one of the original founders of 30 Bench here, Yorgos Papageorgiou.
Wow.
Great man, doctor at McMaster, who made some of the very best Niagara red wines in the beginning, but he would just call them, yeah, this is my red blend, this is the blend. And there'd be people going, it's like, this is like the best wine in Niagara. Why are you calling? What are you doing? Give it a name. Elevate it. And he's like, no, well, it is what it is. It's a blend, and then it took the Peller family to inject money and totally build consistency and all these things there. But where I'm going with this is that it's like this white blend, I think, is going to be the demonstrative one, because I think in the 20 years, Terry, that you and I have been kind of holding a mirror up to what's going on there. Michael, you come in 2004, which is, I've heard Gismondi say, well, in 2000 we started making good wines here. And he's saying this as someone who, like myself, was championing the 97 Mission Hill wines. But he's saying in general, 2000 is kind of a TSN turning point. This is when things happen. But I think what's happened now is that in Ontario, it's a lot easier to sell a bottle of Okanagan Red at a steakhouse than any Niagara wine. But it's always this notion of, oh yeah, but Niagara can do whites. And it's like, and it's almost like Okanagan white wines outside of Chardonnay and the handful of Riesling acolytes who are really doing great things with that. I think there is room for someone to put the stake in the ground and say, look, Sauvignon Blanc Semillon blends or Rhone style blends, these have what you're looking for. They've got texture, they've got fragrance, they've got grace, they've got that, in the best cases, that sagebrush Okanagan scrub thing that you don't get anywhere else in the world. But they're overlooked because people are like, oh, Okanagan, yeah, big red, Syrah, love it. Give it to me. I'll take it all day, every day, twice on Sunday. But the white wines, I think this is where Q&A can, it's a matter of course. Of course, we expect a great Bordeaux-style red wine. The question is, how great? White wines, you've got some room to maneuver and some eyes to open, and you've got a real ability. And I think that's just the right wine to do it, because it's not playing in a monoculture Chardonnay lane or Riesling lane. It's all of those things, Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier. But on my first assessment, there's no star there. They're layered nicely. They're integrated. Viognier is not taken over the way it can so often do. It's just this rich and refined and refreshing wine that opens, as it warms up, as you spend time over that glass. And as I said right off the top, 12.5%, 13% alcohol. It's like, it's not a case of why can't I stand up after two glasses? It's like, it's not ponderous. It's not oaky. It's just so well struck. And I think that's the wine that is, to me, going to be the bellwether. But yeah, it's going to be amazing.
From the night we had it, Meg and I have been talking. My wife, Meg, and I have been talking about that white wine ever since. Because I just want to make sure I wasn't fooling myself So I'm going to get my hands on a second bottle and try it again. Being a partner doesn't mean that you get wine delivered to your front door. You have to go and find him somewhere in Victoria or whatever. I'm just thrilled. And Jason said the same thing. He said, "That's fantastic. That is just fantastic." But of course, Michael has warned us. You got to go find those grapes. You got to find a vineyard and a grower and make sure that it's as good as the last one. And so that's it in a nutshell. Do you want to talk about your white just for a second without going crazy?
Well, it always comes down to farming and the vineyard, always, And we talked about it earlier, Chris. It's when you have so many growers in the Okanagan that can sense that, oh, this is a good market for my grapes. I can grow beautiful yields. I can get from the vineyard as much as I want. Then we will be always looking at sugar levels, and then we will be always looking at high alcohols, spending 24 plus months in a barrel, and I don't think that's really the way that Okanagan had a potential. I think we have much bigger potential over here. I'm glad that you noticed the medium alcohol levels on the white, and still beautiful acidity. Proper timing of picking each of the varietals. Roussanne, Marsanne. First was the Marsanne, second was the Roussanne, third was the Viognier, and especially would like to point out how these grapes were grown in the vineyard is that this vineyard is organically farmed for over 10 years. It's a single vineyard in Osoyoos, and it is also this vineyard never saw any hedging, so always we were bending the shoots, which I think helped to keep the sugars in a medium levels, and we just got much better balance in the berries in the juice after we processed it. So I think that's another very important thing, because I've seen vineyards growing Roussanne, growing Marsanne, growing Viognier, but after the wine was made, I was like, well, there's still always something missing. It was very, very, very one-dimensional, and I think there is much bigger potential if the growers would kind of feel more with their vineyard, feel more the land and what they are doing, and really see the result of their work, other than money.
Money and I think as well, we're starting to see a diversity of voices. There's just, there's not just one lane to play in. There's not anymore. I think as a wine culture, we finally have hit a wine culture where we all don't have to like the same wine. We all don't have to drink Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc or Australian Shiraz or Okanagan Cabernet because it's the it grape, and then a bell rings in 18 months we have to pivot because it's time to be fashionable. It's like, I think we've have enough people sitting down, having meaningful experiences at tasting rooms or restaurants, or reading the right people, or listening to the right radio programs, or finding the right Twitter, someone who resonates with them, and it's just like, oh, wait a second, it's like, there are all these different grapes out there, and I can explore. And as long as I put the glass down with a smile on my face, it's like, that was the right wine for me. And I don't have to drink the same wine all the time. I can explore and enjoy and appreciate. And it doesn't matter if I'm drinking something different from my neighbor or someone else. It's like, you're not making enough to fill the world's glasses 2 times over. So let them explore and discover and see that this is out there. And I just loved that. Yeah, this, what would be the difficult second album? You kind of went really into the difficult second album with an atypical white blend for the region. It could have put easy to play safe. Yeah.
But what if your first album was Dark Side of the Moon? Then what do you do? You remix it. By the way, just a couple of things, because I'm dying to talk to you, Chris. The oak regime with the Bordeaux blend, I'm fascinated by it. 50% neutral oak, 20% second fill French oak, 16% new Slovakian oak, and 14% new French oak. And there's a lot of oak. It's a lot of handling. It's just, especially to see Slovakian oak in there is really cool. I like that a lot. I thought of Charlie Piloteri, who always had a comment. I was out there doing interviews for the Niagara Wine Festival, and Piloteri said, I said, why can't we find BC wines in Ontario? He said, because you're homers. You're all homers. You just drink everything you make. You know, nothing's ever going to get up into Alberta, barely into Alberta, and certainly not Manitoba. It'll never get here. And so why bother with you guys? I know that's just Charlie, and was a great copy at the time, but it stuck with me. In our lifetime, will we ever see Ontario and BC and Ontario, or is it just too locked in bureaucratically?
Well, I think it's not going to be us who solve that. It's going to be a generational swing, and we're already seeing it. We're already seeing it. You know, I think what set it back maybe a little bit is that there's been this kind of Freaky Friday thing where, after years of Vancouver sommeliers looking first in their own backyard, then the rest of the world, suddenly you had the youth swing come in and they started looking elsewhere. And then the Okanagan, just at the point in time where Toronto wine bars were like, I would rather pour Malivoire or Tawes or Pearl Morissette. Or I want to pour something that's from here that's local, to go with these local cuisines and all these things. And then maybe I'll fill in some interesting around the world wines. Sadly, BC gets counted as around the world because of the way we have to shop. But no, I think it's changing. I think the pandemic helped pull all of the wine industry into the modern era with online sales. You know, it was something. Why would you incubate it if it's something that people weren't asking for?
Yeah.
But once people got accustomed to it, then now I understand it's not the booming business it was, but at least it didn't fall completely by the wayside either. And I have to say, in Ontario, the good amount of olive oil or whatever is coming in these boxes from Okanagan wineries to consumers, to the globe readers who are ordering Winemaker's Cut and other things that I recommend that are solely available to them by direct order. That's a huge change, and one that we didn't necessarily see 3 years ago. So I always, as always, Terry, I live in hope. I gotta keep hope alive that we will have that one day. That you didn't get arrested driving across the Alberta border, so we live in hope. Yeah.
Well, thankfully, my Mountie friends were not there, but the media was. Yeah, it sort of worked out. Michael, I'm sorry we're not talking about your wine, but we haven't seen each other in years as well.
Oh, no problem. I'm here. If you need any information about a wine, just ask me.
No, jump in. We just had an incredible small festival, one-day festival in Victoria, the first ever natural wine festival. It was fantastic. It was, and I only got to taste 5 or 6 at the most, but I knew most of the people in the room. They are the next sage rolling down the road. They're the next thing that I'm keeping an eye on. And there was even one there from Ontario, which I liked a lot.
Nice.
You'd have loved this. You would have loved this room. It's your kind of room. So, has anybody asked you? Do we get a review? Will we see a review? Will we read your words in the Globe? About
what? About Q&A?
Yeah.
No, we're going to time something around, because it's still a May release. Is that what's happening with the white wine? What's happening with it? When is it coming out? When can we order?
We are just finishing the final tech sheet, and then it's going to be available for the retail probably actually April 1st, I would say. Well, there is the label. And then to the public, we will send a newsletter probably throughout April, and then it's going to be available. You can actually, if you are planning to review our wine, then we can actually time it together and put a date there when you would like to review it. That would be awesome.
So if I published as early as April 8th, the weekend edition of Easter, I figure it's fairly good reading for.
Whoa!
That would be
We can go
awesome.
with that.
That would be awesome.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's I think this type of program, or this type of creativity. Well, actually, Terry, you're talking about natural, and you're talking about, obviously low intervention.
Yeah.
Michael, that wine lineup, that regime, the oak regime for that red wine, all those different barrels, that's far from low intervention, but there's got to be at a certain heartbeat of a wine, or as a winemaker, the Hippocratic oath: first, do no harm, right? And so you're not lathering in tons of new oak, but you are picking your spots where this type of oak is going to give me focus. This is going to give me some richness. This is going to give me some texture. Here's the spice I'm looking for. Here's something, a certain je ne sais quoi, perhaps from Slovenian. And so you could have made it easy. You could have put it all into a couple of different barrels and just plunged, put the tops on, topped it up, and kind of gone in your rocking chair. But you obviously knew you had something special here, and you wanted to honor that. Is that correct way of saying it? Yeah.
Definitely. First of all, I didn't have a recipe. What would I like to do? I really wanted to first, my style is always just helping the wine, helping the berries, helping the vineyard to become what it wants to be. So when I tasted the wine, fresh after, first alcoholic fermentation, then the malolactic fermentation, I kind of knew that, I think it needs help in this direction, that direction. That's why we picked the oak regime. And I was also never wanted to work only with like one type of oak, like for example, French or American. Because the moment I landed in Canada, I realized this is a beautiful multicultural country. Why to use only French or American oak? There's so many different kinds of oaks in the world that we could use. It was the first vintage that we did of Q&A, and of course, I got a little bit lucky too. But hopefully, I have also some kind of experience that I was able to pick the right oak to highlight the style that I wanted. And especially glad you mentioned the only 11 months in oak, because that's where I think the market needs more red wine that has less oak influence. And Oak Island can produce just beautiful fruit forward wines with just the right kiss of oak that just gives you just a little bit of chill when you are drinking it.
Yeah, I think everything happens. What is it? To all things, there's a season, right? And I think you were coming out of a time where this big push, and the right push for for organic viticulture, vineyard first, and let's focus in our attention on those natural factors, and whether or not we're playing music to our vines to help stimulate them. We can't leave without talking about that, but I want to finish this thought first.
It's so Python. That is so Python. That's a skit.
Yeah. But I think it only makes sense to have this real into the ground exploration focus, fruit first focus, not to then step into the cellar and go, well, wait a second. If we're looking to be fruit, if we're putting grapes into a bottle, and if we're looking to harness the potential of these wines that are made in the vineyard, it's like, why would I need 18 or 24 months in new French oak when they did that in a place where they couldn't ripen grapes? If we just looked outside, we're ripening grapes. We have a flavor that we don't need to. It doesn't need a performance enhancing crutch. It can just be. It might need some spanks, some streamlining, and some shaping and some contouring, but it doesn't need another flavor or a overriding flavor. And so I think that's what's going to come out of it, out of all of this progression of organics and let's dial in the vineyard. It's going to call into question every other tool in the toolkit, And not to say we have to throw them away, but it's just like, just how do you use them? When do you use them? When do you call that number? Or when do you, let's just let it ride in this older oak barrel that I've maintained. It doesn't have any there's no emotional baggage from the last wine that was in it, so I can use it again. It's not microbial. It's just a nice vessel for me. And so I think that's a great way to think about, to call into question everything each year, because, as you say, there is no recipe. And that's what I think it showed to me why the Okanagan was great, was that I would go there and there'd be like lots of sons who are like press ganged into making wine without a whole lot of knowledge. And poor Michael Bardier was like running up and down the valley, consulting, helping wherever he could. But it's just like, these wines are so good, and there's not a whole lot of like hand on the tiller here to shape these wines. Just imagine how good it is going to be when we don't have this winemaker deficit. And jump cut to 2004. You're there. We've got Australians and South Africans and French. We've got winemakers from around the world who chose to come here and make a virtue out of these grapes. And yeah, the wines obviously get better and better and better, even though Mother Nature seems to be hurling more lightning bolts and things at you than usual. Fire, flame, pestilence. But the wines are solid. And so there was a question in there, Michael. I'm not sure where it was, but yeah, I think that it's all this ongoing evolution and this exploration and the question. As long as you're asking questions, you get one shot each year to answer it. But then you're pondering it, see how it goes next time, and
That always makes me nervous, but that's what we are kind of looking for. That's the alchemy of winemaking, always you come up with one vintage, one shot. And, if you could imagine how nervous was when I was sending those 4 samples, or always sending the samples to Jason and Terry with different blends. And I was like, Jesus, hopefully they are going to like this little oak regime, because like we are, all the Okanagan icon wines are like 24 months in the oak, and, I was really, really nervous.
Don't keep going off in the oak regime, for God's sake. But please, let's move on to other things like sport. I think Olivia, if you're still there, watch for Jason. I think he may be incoming.
I'm still here. I will keep an eye out.
Thank you.
So,
Dave. Sorry.
No, just so I have it, because it's such a great story. How many bottles? You said number 2 was the blend. How many bottles?
We talked about 3, but I think we only got 2. Am I right, or were there 3?
I think it was 3 or 4 even. I don't remember actually.
It was the middle blend.
Yeah.
Frankly,
we wanted to use as many bottles as possible, but then you were pretty quick actually. You said like, this is it.
We just said, this is it. See if you can hit this pocket, and you hit the pocket. So, and that's it. And I kept the bottle. Oh, here he is. Hold on a second.
Priestley.
Hey man, have you got a?
And for white blend, how do you? Did you just do
White blend was actually, I almost forced them to do it because I had to bottle it. And this is the other thing with my winemaking style, that I like to add sulfur only twice during the winemaking process. One when the wine is wrapped from the fermentation, and the second addition is like just before bottling, just to adjust the proper amount so the wine doesn't get oxidized in a bottle. So I knew that I need to bottle this right away, and these guys are going to love it. So I already put a label on it, and I sent them the sample, and they said like, this is amazing. Like, I knew that you will like it.
Okay.
Okay, hold on a second.
And I took the risk, because if they would say like, oh, this is not exactly our style, then I would have to remove the label by hand.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of. And so, is there a follow-up red blend in barrel, in bottle? Where is it at?
2021 is already in bottle. 2020 still in barrels.
Okay.
We like, I think the way we started in 2020, the vintage with the Cabernet Sauvignon as dominant varietal, we were able to follow it also in 2021. But 2022 might be slightly different, especially because of the damage in the vineyard, frost damage. So we might focus more on maybe.
Okay, Jay's incoming. Here we go. Thank you.
It's definitely not going away, Alex. Call, gentlemen, I'm so sorry. I thought the call was at 1 o'clock. I was in the Eastern time zone this morning. And I'm sorry I got a little messed up. My apologies.
No problem. At least I had some room to say something.
Michael
Jason.
finally got to talk about his wine. It's so exciting. Hi, Olivia. I'm so sorry. I didn't know there was a female present.
It's all
Hi,
good.
Olivia.
I just want to say hello, and I gave a quick little introduction of you, Jason, to the group, and I also just want to quickly introduce Christopher Waters to you. Maybe like require no introduction, but I'll say it anyway. Wine and spirits columnist from the Globe and Mail. He also is a wine educator, wine education director at a wine school in Toronto called IWEG, and teaches at Brock University. He also does wine judging internationally. So very exciting. I've been the happiest fly on the wall today. So I will leave you guys back to it. Jason, so good to meet you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Olivia. Nice to meet you, too.
Yeah, we've just been talking about how everything went wrong so quickly. You know, how did a debut project like this go off the rails so fast? And so I'm glad that you're here because Michael's been trying to tap dance away from the, but he assures me that it's possible to do again, which is that's a good news story for that red wine. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. I mean, as long as the gods are smiling on our vineyards the way that we hope they do, we should be able to come close to replicating the wine that we put in the bottle the first year. But Michael, you can speak to that better than anybody.
Yeah, I did already mention to Chris that it's going to be 2021 vintage, lower volume, unfortunately, but that's the Mother Nature is treating us, so we are appreciating everything what she gives us. And then the 2022 is still in the barrel, and we have some really hard decision to make of how the blend is going to look like.
And he's going to have to listen to you guys more as opposed to just throwing bottles in from the sidelines and saying, "What do you think?" You might have some more input.
Hey, Jay. Ask Chris how, if he tasted the white. Go ahead.
Chris, did you taste the white? And if you did, what did you think of it?
We were just talking about that. To me, I was saying that at this point in time, it's people expect red wines of that caliber from the Okanagan. People expect, that's no longer catching lightning in a bottle the way it was with Black Hills and some of the early people were kind of, it's like putting it to me. But I was saying this white wine, this is going to be the stake in the ground. This is the one that people aren't necessarily going to see coming because there's so many. It's like, okay, Okanagan Chardonnay. People have been pushing that Pinot Gris, your hometown, and have spot prawns and everything else. But this white blend that has no real kind of like, well, what's my touchstone around the world? It's like, because it's not Rhone, it's Rhone varieties, but with an Okanagan accent. And at 12.5% alcohol, which is amazing to have that richness, texture, refreshment. Love that style.
Yeah. You can drink it all day, which is a good thing because when we all first started tasting it, I was like, "Oh, Michael, this goes too easy."
It's I think anytime the ultimate indication of the quality of a wine, that second half of the bottle, you can have that kind of thunderstruck 1 ounce pour and go, okay, I understand why Parker said this, but it's just like, but why can't I finish this bottle of wine? It's like, it's just too much of it's too in your face. But I just love that style of white wine. But in the interest of time, and also I don't know how well the connection is going to be as you're rolling down the road. The major question for you, Jason, is when you stepped up and became kind of this ambassador for the Okanagan with Black Hills. At a point in time, you probably needed to explain the Okanagan and the why you could have been. This could have been Napa. It could have been anywhere in the world. You settled here. This second time around, I'm guessing there's a lot less eyebrows raised and a lot more like, yeah, that makes sense. We understand the Okanagan now a bit better. We understand that there's great wines coming from here. So of course you would be doing this as opposed to Napa, Sonoma, wherever. Yeah.
Certainly, 100%. Yeah, I think that the recognition of the Okanagan nowadays, in Canada, in America, is far greater than it was back in 2009 when we purchased Black Hills. It's and I think that since that time, the quality of the wines has improved exponentially as well. And I think that I think that the wines coming out of the Okanagan Valley will continue to improve, not only as the area it continues to evolve as a wine growing region, but also as climate change continues to push the warmness and the heat cycles further north. I think that the fact that the Kendall Jackson clan is now buying up vineyards in the Cowichan Valley on Vancouver Island, is a great indicator of that there is a push from a lot of these southern sort of North American winemaking family dynasties to look further afield to choose where their next vineyard sites are going to be in there. And oddly enough, they're looking north of the 49 parallel, which is quite fascinating.
No, well said. Yeah, it's I think that the time it was great when Wine Spectator would come and do the once a year kind of splashy thing, but now it's we're not a footnote. We're not that these wines now are I'm sending Okanagan Syrah to Australia and it's beating Penfolds in tastings
Fantastic.
with MW tasters and things. So it's I think this kind of this evolution that's come, and I think the pressure that comes from the winemaking side, Michael's been talking about it a little bit as well. It's just like this notion that you've got this attention, you've got this potential that you have to realize, and it's about becoming consistent and representing this corner of the world that tastes unlike any other corner of the world in the bottle.
Yep. Yeah, and there is, I mean, there is pressure that comes along with that, but I think, I think that we have, I think that we have the terroir, we have the, we have, we have the weather, we have the, and we have the talent there. We have the winemakers, we have the farmers that know how to tend the vines now, because they've been doing it for long enough, right? I think that all the elements are there, and I think that it's exciting to be a part of the Okanagan Valley coming into its own in its winemaking heyday. It's really exciting. It's exciting for all. It's exciting for all of us.
Yeah. Well, it was telling to me sitting here from my as the globe readers like to say, the center of the universe. Of course, here in Hamilton, Ontario, the center of the universe, where I am prognosticating about wine. But it was telling to me to hear Michael talk about walking through this vineyard of grapes that he had no contract with and no real designs for, but knowing he had to get them and then figure it out because it's too good to pass up. And if you say no to this now, when does this vineyard become available in such a competitive landscape as the Okanagan? I love that part.
Yeah, it's great. And luckily for us, Terry and I just happened along at the right time and connected with Michael, and we all decided to do this crazy Q&A wine adventure together. And luckily for us, people are responding to the juice that we put in the bottle, and And so we are very excited to introduce the white to everybody, and hopefully they'll respond to it the same way they responded to our red wine.
I have a question for Mr. Priestley. Mr. Priestley,
Yes, sir.
um, does it make a difference to you if your name is on that bottle? And if it does, what does that do for you? Because I say that because it moves me. It gets me completely and totally focused and engaged. How about you?
It does. I mean, I've never had my signature on the back label of a wine before, the way that we all did for this, and I think it's really awesome. But it's also an awesome responsibility, because every time everybody opens a bottle of our wine, I and I think the collective I think we all feel a great ownership over this wine, and a great responsibility to everyone who opens a bottle of our wine, that they have a great experience with that bottle of wine, that they not only just enjoy the wine that's in the bottle, but it elevates the experience that they're having, and that's what I hope for.
But I find it hard to believe that. So I just saying, I find it hard to believe that when you were doing Hollywood and Vine, you weren't sitting back watching rushes, going, one day we're going to be making a wine with somebody who's watching this right now.
I don't think we ever talked about that.
What?
No, we didn't. We had no idea.
Know?
This was never.
My wife is telling me like all the time, like, would you ever think that this would happen? Like 10 years ago, would you ever dream of this? Like, I had absolutely no idea. And look at my gray hair now. All I'm dreaming of every night is Q&A. How is going to next vintage look like? How am I going to meet the quality level again? But it's really enjoyable.
Just further to what Jason was saying about climate change, the featured speaker at the 44th annual Vancouver Wine Festival is Evan Goldstein, master, of course, of San Francisco. And I went to a talk he did in Yosemite National Park easily 15 years ago. And he started at 10 o'clock in the morning, a Pinot Noir session, by saying, if I were buying vines today, or planting vines today, I wouldn't plant in Oregon or Washington or California. I'd go directly to British Columbia, and I'd start my wine career in British Columbia, because it's all coming their way. And he said that 15 years ago.
Wow.
So it's finally, I mean, you talk about the Cowichan Valley. We got two really good wineries now owned by Napa Sonoma family. And it's just, all of a sudden the buzz is just everywhere. It's really cool.
Yeah.
No, for certain. It's and maybe just as the final question, we got this. You get your reviews in the next couple of weeks from the white, the red, and one of the things, Jason, we were talking about ahead of you. I said, to me, one of the best elements that came out of the reception of that red wine was how generous and optimistic and supportive it was. Whereas I think in 2009, when Black Hills kind of came on, there were some in the Valley who kind of said, oh, well, star power and celebrity, who were kind of like, it's like, how is this a negative? Tell me how this is a negative to have someone come in and, kind of put some Roman candles and smoke into the air and kind of say, look, there's excitement over here, and this time around, it's like, yeah, it's great. We not only do we want this to be a great wine, we want this to be one of the best wines, because we want this to help galvanize attention. And if this is the one wine that someone tastes from here, don't you want it to blow their socks off, as opposed to like, oh yeah, it's okay.
The response has been phenomenal. And we are all incredibly humbled and honored by the response and the scores that the wineries received, and the way it's been received by the public so far has been It's been really, really amazing, and I think we're all very, like I said, we're humbled and honored by the way that people are responding to the wine. Right, guys?
Nice.
Like that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Jay.
Yeah,
But-
I'm
but
not
you know
sure
what?
word for
But you know
Michael.
We have to wait for Chris to write his column, and spread the love.
It's it's
Exactly.
no pressure. From the center of the universe, taste making, live from Hamilton. Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to connect with you all. I won't suffer in silence when I'm going through notes and recordings and things. If there's anything, I'll reach out to Olivia to make sure that I've captured this just right, and we'll get in touch with you, Michael, for through Olivia for photos and supported things and like that, and see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
Fan the smoke into the air.
Yeah. We are just launching the wine in the States as well. So I hope we can also get some good reviews in the States and, represent British Columbia and Canadian wine over there.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time and very generous with your time, really. So appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay.
Good. Glad that you made it.
Get him on the follow up.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good day.
Bye, guys.
See you. Bye.
Bye.